I think I will jump in and go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. Both Laura and Astrid are with CASAS. They're here to kind of give you CASAS 101, how the assessment works and what it's all about and how it might work for your program. But first, I am going to call on Gabriella to please tell us how long State Line has been using CASAS and how it's working for you.
So hello everyone. We've been using CASAS around like 3 years for
Okay.
now. And personally, it's very good for me. It's very good to track like the score for every student. They make a report, depends what do you need for it. If you need to see the gain, if you need to see what will be the next test, if you need like a speak test. So they provide you everything. So the tech support is very well also. If you have something that you are not sure about it, you can just go to the webpage and they have a lot of information step by step how to do it. If you have like duplicate names when you register, how to merge both and just one, um, everything. So my experience, our experience is very good with CASAS.
Wonderful. Well, and I understand you were not there when they switched from tape to CASAS, but obviously you're happy with what you're using now.
Oh yeah, I was there when they switched. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the past how
Ah,
they track that, but I started with Casas actually. So I was the first person using Casas on a state
oh,
line, me and Liana. So it was very,
that's
very good.
that's
And
great.
yeah, I started working there. So now I'm back with Casas and yeah, it's good.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I thought it was important for folks to hear. And if you if you're willing to have people reach out to you with any specific concerns they have or information that you feel like you can share, I'd appreciate that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Astrid and Laura and invite you. Oh, I see Anne has her hand raised. Anne? Question?
Oh, you're muted.
Did you hit that by accident?
No, I hit it on purpose. I'm
Okay.
also, yes, I'm very sorry. I was a few seconds late. I was on another conference call, but I'm also with State working with Gabby. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, you're breaking up a tiny, tiny bit, but that's okay.
Okay. I will talk slower and louder.
That's
I,
better.
yes. Um, we, I interviewed Leanna, who made the decision to start CASAS, switching from TABE, to ask her rationale and the benefits she saw.
Hmm?
And it was very helpful to me to understand it better because I am the person who is new, whereas Gabby is known as our teacher in CASAS in actually State Line. So Leanna said that she was very tired of using TABE and having to hand score things and
Oh,
compare scores over time. Although it was a good set of materials and a good set of testing, it was just taking too much time. And CASAS allowed us to do it with the computer, and it allowed us to compare and pull down our scores much more easily and much more quickly. The drawback was, of course, that we had to do a lot of, not a lot of, but enough orientation to people using computers for testing. Testing is, as you all know, anxiety provoking. Computers can be anxiety provoking. Um, 1 + 1 is 2, increases anxiety. So
yes.
we had to work through that. So overall, we're trying to help our students become more comfortable with computers, and Wisconsin Literacy is helping us with that. And secondly, the thing about CASAS is we needed to check what type of test to use universally across all of our classes so that we could get comprehensive scores. And we chose the CASAS reading test for that, but it's also required us teachers because I teach and direct, us teachers to look at our teaching methods, which with Intercambio series does not have that much reading, does not have as much reading as is tested in the CASAS reading. And so that was another thing that we really had to think, we have to think about now as teachers. So I am personally adding more reading into my classes, reading comprehension, reading comfort, to be sure that we're not, because students have said, wow, there's a lot of reading in CASAS. We don't do that much in classes. So really asking the students for their feedback is of course the best way to find out how it's working. The other challenge I've had is, and I hope I'm not talking too much.
No, you're fine.
Okay, is the timing of when we test for CASAS. One of our directors wanted it beginning and end of a semester of a school year of 2 semesters, I mean.
Mhm.
Another of our directors felt that was too long because sometimes we lose a student from one semester to the next and we don't have the comparative scores. So I lean on the beginning and end of a semester so that we can have the comparison, but it does take a fair amount of time to do a full test for CASAS. I mean, it requires us to set aside a class time or to make our registration period quite long. So we're balancing that out. So I'll pass now and see if questions come up during the presentation.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I will add here that you changed from TABE to CASAS not just after, but not too long after TABE bumped up to the new levels back then. And reading became more intense than in TABE as well. But it's really good to know that that Intercambio maybe doesn't have as much reading as one would like. So that's an important point. Thank you. Okay. Astrid and Laura, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you do your magic. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Marcia. Thanks for that introduction. And I love that we're having a bit of a conversation around the Thanksgiving table here today. So feel free as we're going along, if you have something that you want to ask, or you can put your question in the chat, just feel free to, we'll move at your pace. So my name is Laura Fetter. I'm the Program Development Director for CASAS, and I'm joined by my colleague, Astrid Robitaille. She is our National Program and Online Training Specialist. And we like to say at CASAS, let CASAS be your compass, because our products are not just for ESL learners, they're for ABE, GED, work readiness, so across that whole spectrum. So we were established in 1980, so we're about 45 years old, which is a good age to be. And we're national leaders in adult education and assessment. A lot of people think, oh, well, CASAS, that's just a California thing. But as you can see, 49 states and 3 territories use CASAS to assess training eligibility and work readiness. So those dark blue states are states that have us on their state assessment menu. And then the light blue states are those states that we are used within the state various programs, but may not be used for NRS reporting purposes. So we're happy to see Wisconsin is dark blue. So we can go ahead and talk about CASAS with you. So what makes us different is that we're a fully integrated assessment and data management system, which we'll be talking a little bit more about. We're also a nonprofit organization, and we specialize in assessing adult learners. We don't work with other demographic programs. In fact, collectively, our team has over 1,000 years of experience in adult education only. And then last but not least, our test units never expire and they are not test specific. So that gives programs a lot of flexibility when they're using CASAS e-tests. Our assessments are relevant. So they were recently approved, and we were the only test publisher to get a 7-year approval. So they're integrating questions about using an email, search engines, the things that students need to know now. We have flexible test delivery, so you can either use e-tests, paper, pencil booklets. We can even do remote testing with CASAS if that's something you need to do. And then our training and support is complimentary. Again, we're available in different formats. We are NRS approved for ABE, ASE, and ESL. And we offer 4 different modalities: reading, math, listening, and writing. Then again, I think I mentioned at the beginning, when you say let CASAS be your compass, we do believe it's better if programs use us for both programs, just because of, as Anne was talking about, that anxiety with students taking an assessment. It's just less anxiety when it's a similar format. They're familiar with it. It's not, doesn't create that anxiety for the students, and they're familiar with the reports. Teachers are familiar with reports. You only have to train on one system. So that's why there are no sharks in the water below that little bridge. It's a safe journey from ABE to ESL, or ESL to ABE. So I'm going to turn it over to Astrid.
Thanks, Laura. One more thing to mention about this little graphic here: there's no sharks in the water and there are no trolls under the bridge, because we find, and we've got, as you saw from that map, many programs all over the country using CASAS for both ESL and ABE. And one thing they tell us is once a student reaches that NRS level 6 in ESL, they are very ready to join an ABE class and move into that. They're incredibly prepared, to not fall into the water with the sharks. They swim, they don't sink. So yeah, that's another reason, as Laura was saying, to have that continuum. But we do see that nationwide. So Laura alluded to our assessments. Our ESL, ELL assessments right now are reading steps and listening steps. They are approved through 2030. CASAS is proud to say that we were given the longest approval. The federal government only approves test series for 7 years, and we were granted that. So there's no need to worry about transitioning to a new test series until 2030. So that's where we stand with our ESL, ELL assessments. And for ABE, ASE, we have currently we have reading goals and math goals 2. Math goals 2 was submitted a couple of years ago with our ESL series. So it too is approved NRS through 2030. And you might notice over on the reading goals side on the left that is approved through June 30th, 2025. We submitted reading goals 2, which is our new assessment for reading goals, in October, right on schedule, to the federal government. And we are eagerly anticipating full approval from the federal government. We're on time schedule for that. We typically hear, sometime in March and April, and we expect to hear any day now. But it has been submitted for approval, and when it is approved, we will obviously send out, a big, blast, so you'll know. And we've been assured that there will be a sunset period for reading goals. So there'll be enough time, adequate time to make the switch in your own programs. If you're using e-tests, it's very easy. You just add the new testing sessions on the back end, or contact our tech support and we can do that for you. And if you're paper testing, you would just order the new reading goals 2 materials. So we anticipate that any day. So we're keeping our ear to the ground, and we are in regular communication with the federal government on that too. So it's just a waiting game, and they tell us it's coming. So speaking to Anne's comments about the reading component, steps and goals 2 have an academic focus. The federal government requires that adult ed assessments to be approved are aligned to the English language proficiency standards. the ELP standards, which are the standards for English language learners in adult education. And then our goals series for ABE, ASE learners are aligned to the college and career readiness standards. And this is to, meet the demands of a challenging workforce and moving into post-secondary. They are aligned to the English language and the CCR standards. And so again, we encourage that instruction also be aligned to those standards, and that teachers, be planning lessons and group activities that are aligned to those standards. Some of our partners, for example, one of our ELL partners, our biggest partner is Burlington English. So if any of you use Burlington English, their lesson plans, their activities are aligned with CASAS assessments and with the English language proficiency standards. Okay, so that's one kind of caveat to the instruction piece with CASAS. We have, this is a nice graphic. I really like this because visually it really just shows how our test series, all 5 levels, are aligned to the 6 NRS levels. And you will note that each test level, A, B, C, D, and E, covers 2 NRS levels, so that the student always has the opportunity to make a measurable skill gain. So for example, if you have a beginning level student who, takes a locator on e-test, and the locator places them in the lowest level, level A, you can see that blue rectangle, that level A covers levels 1 and level 2. So they have that chance to make that level gain within that instructional period between pre-testing and progress testing. Okay, that's a unique feature of our new assessments, and covers all 6 levels, but the student really always has that chance to make a level gain. Okay. Again, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat or raise your hand. We're more than welcome. We know we're kind of throwing a lot of information at you quickly. So how long does the test take? Well, here is an example of our reading steps for ESL. The test time is student-centered, so they are allotted in this column here. They are allotted, 30 minutes for level A, 50 for B. And again, as Anne mentioned, there is a lot of reading. These are the academic aligned to the English language proficiency standards. So they are allotted 75 minutes for the upper levels of the test. Now, that is not to say that the student typically takes that long to take the test. Based on, thousands and thousands and thousands of test administrations around the country, our data suggests that really it's a smaller, significantly shorter time that the students actually spend testing, an adequate amount of time, but it is significantly shorter. For instance, you can see level A, they typically take just 15 minutes. Level A is about 40% pictures. It's a very low literacy level. So you can see, in contrast with level E, which as Anne mentioned, is a lot of narratives that they need to read and grapple with. And so that, they have 75 minutes, but typically less than 60 is what they're spending on. And you can see here the scale score ranges. You'll note here that there are 2 test forms at each level. That is the same test level, but 2 different forms. So they can be used interchangeably. One is a pre-test and one can be used as a post-test. Okay.
Astrid, I wanted to add something that what came up at the COABE conference that is not always clear to folks. When you see that locator there and it tells you the test time and then, level A, level B, some folks didn't realize that that locator is embedded in the whole test session with that student. So the student doesn't realize that they've taken a locator, and then another assessment. It seamlessly places them into the appropriate level.
Yeah, excellent point, Laura. Thanks for pointing that out. The locator, when you sit a student down on intake who comes in, you don't know what level they're at, they're a new student, you would sit them down and the proctor would give a locator with a pretest. The locator consists of questions from all 6 NRS levels. And it's 14 questions here. And as the student answers them, the locator hones in on what would be the correct, appropriate pretest and seamlessly starts that pretest. So from the student perspective, it's just one test sitting.
And it's just for the pretest. The
Yeah.
post-test, they wouldn't take a locator.
Yeah. Then when they've done the pretest, the system, TOPS Pro Enterprise and eTest, remembers what their pretest was, and automatically, when you sit them down to post-test or to progress test, automatically assigns them the correct test as soon as they log in with their ID. So you don't have to kind of figure that out yourself. The system does it for you.
Astrid, can you explain what the appraisal is?
The appraisal is the same thing as the locator, but it's a longer version, and it is available in eTest. So that would be a separate test session, but that's what is used generally in paper testing. So because paper testing, they would need to take that full test and then refer to the next assigned test chart in the test administration manual to determine what would be the correct pretest. The appraisal is just kind of the long form of the locator in eTest, and it is the only option in paper testing.
Okay.
That's one of the advantages of eTest over paper testing. It cuts down on the testing session.
Well, and that's just what I was going to ask you to talk a little bit about. You do offer paper and pencil as an option for those folks who test very, very rarely. But paper testing, I still have to score that myself. Is that right?
Yeah,
So
you
there's
can.
always that margin for error. I always worry about that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Our test.
Online is available for all of these as well.
Yeah, you can scan in the answer sheets that the student does the paper test on. You can scan them into TOPS Pro if you'd like, but that involves using an optical scanner or a Scantron. We don't sell those, but there is information on our website about compatible hardware for that.
and there are also agencies that will just manually enter the results in instead of hand scoring. They just manually enter it into TE
Oh.
because that's how they get their reports, and they get all the bells and whistles. Once you get into to TE, you're going to see all the reports that we have. That's really what the teachers love more than anything.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That'll be helpful.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Laura to talk a little bit
Okay,
about.
good. Yeah. Talking about TE, TOPS Enterprise.
Nice segue.
So this is our data management system, and it's not, you don't have to purchase it separately. It's included when you purchase the CASAS e-test package. It's also compatible with external student information systems such as LACES. So sometimes you have your TE, which holds your assessment information, and then you can import like hours of instruction or class to be able to run more of those robust teacher level reports, which we're going to show you. Anything you want to add there, Astrid? No?
No, I just, if you don't mind, I'd love to go over the individual skills report. This is one of the reports you can generate in TE. It is a fan favorite because, as you can see, there's a lot of information here. I know it's small, maybe if you're seeing it, but Marcia has said that she'd send out the PowerPoint if that's okay. Here's an individual skills profile. You see the student. These are their 2 tests, the most recent tests they've taken. You can configure all the parameters of this. So if you want more tests in there that they've taken, you can do it. She's took a listening and a reading on these dates. NRS levels 3 and 5. These are their scale scores. And these are the levels. She's a level B in listening and a level D in reading. There were 36 questions on each. These were the number correct, the raw score, the number she correctly answered. And this is interesting. This is the number that she attempted. So you can see here, she skipped 2 questions on the listening, and that's okay. We want them to skip rather than make a guess. And she skipped 1 over here on reading. These give the reading competencies and the English language proficiency standard content areas, vocabulary, details, main idea, inference. These are ELP standards 8, 1, and 6 at level D. The N here is the number of questions on that test pertaining to that standard. So you see she got 55% of the questions correct on details. There were 11 questions, so she did, she did a little more than half. Down here, there was, again, she's level D in reading and B in listening. And so inference is just starting to be introduced at this assessment level. There were 6 questions because we're just kind of entering that territory. And she got about a third of them correct. So about 2 questions. Okay, we'll take a look at the reports and how to use them in one sec. Then this is for listening, dialogue, and details and main idea. These are the ELP standards for listening. The N is the same, the number of questions that pertain to that content area, and the percent correct. So she did quite well in details and dialogue. The task area, I always feel like, again, coming from an adult ed background and teaching adult ed for so many years and working as a program administrator, I feel like our task area reports don't get as much love as they should. The task simply refers to how the question is presented. So was the question in the form of a chart or a table or a graph or a sign or an ad or a label? This is how they did, this is how she did on those. So you see there was 16 text, emails, articles, and narratives, and she only got about half correct. So that might be a place that the teacher could kind of provide some extra help with. Sometimes, especially with math, they might know the answer, but they don't understand, like for instance, how to read like a line graph, you know? So I always it's a little pet peeve of mine that people don't pay as much attention to the task areas, so I always try and point it out.
I want to add something to Astrid
Sure.
about this report. This is a great report that you can print up for your student after their pre-test. And then if they have like a folder that they keep, stuff in, they can compare it to their post-test so they can see how they've improved. Even if you were just pointing out what their scale score was on the pre-test and then their scale score on the post-test, the students have evidence, right, that they're making progress. And then also, not on this one because this is an ESL report, but for our ABE, ASE reports, that blank square to the right next to attempted, that would give you the reading, the GLE, right?
Mhm.
And it would also lower down, you'd have a GED or high set predictor. So it would tell you whether the student, how close they were to being able to pass that GED or high set.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And all of that is customizable. So if you'd prefer not to have the student's grade level equivalent shown on this chart, you don't have to have it. You can adjust that in TOPS Pro.
There's a question in the chat. How do tutors, instructors then use these results to figure out where to start the student when they begin Burlington English, for instance?
Yeah, great question. You are the queens of segue here. 'Cause I just love it how we're just on the same wavelength, because here is the next slide, and this is a report that we have had so much feedback from around the country about how valuable this is. So you can see across the room, right, where the areas of weakness are for the student. So this student took a level D up there in the blue header. Their raw score was 23, their scale score was 220. You can see that vocabulary, the red column, they did quite well, 78%. Details, Not so much. Inference lower also, but again, this is a level D and inference is just starting to be introduced. Down below, you can see sort of a version of what we saw in the individual skills report. You can see the content areas, the English language proficiency standards content areas, and the content areas vocabulary. On this assessment, it was understanding academic vocabulary and understanding words with multiple meanings. That refers to ELP standard 8 and had an N of 9. So there were 9 questions on this assessment that pertained to those vocabulary topics, 78%. Okay, main idea. So the teacher would look at this and say, the rule of thumb is about 70%. So lower, if a student had lower than 70% mastery on a content area, that would suggest to the teacher that they should provide some reinforcement at that level for this instance, details and inference. Now, vocabulary and main idea, the students kind of got it going on. So the teacher would then provide some activities and some challenge work at the next higher level. So maybe like a high level D or level E. And if that happens in combination, reinforcement on details and inference during that instructional period. So if this was their pretest, during those 70 to 100 hours of instructional time prior to the post-test or to the progress test, if they work on details and inference at that level, provide some challenge material in vocabulary main idea, we would expect a MSG, a level gain on the post-test. Does that answer your question, Clara? Yeah. We have a whole training module about this on our training site. So that was kind of the 30,000-foot view. But we tried to make it as kind of visual and self-explanatory here as possible. So
I also want to add this same report is available at the classroom level. So if you were a teacher and you were trying to, okay, the bulk of my student needs help with X, this would tell you that information. It would tell you, for example, they need help with inference, they need help with details. And so I'm going to spend time as a teacher integrating that, right, throughout the semester, or using Burlington English to focus on those specific skills. This could also be run from a program level. So if you're the PD director and you see like everybody in our ESL program is struggling with inference, which wouldn't be surprising because this is part of the new, rigor. So you may say, I'm going to do a PD for teachers on how do you teach inference skills, right? So this report can be sliced and diced depending on what you need and who needs it.
excellent, excellent points. Thanks, Laura. Teacher portal.
This is something new that we've been rolling out this year because we know at many programs, the data can get bottlenecked at the data manager level. So they're the one like collecting it and running reports and then having to send it out. The teacher portal allows teachers to have that live data in their hands right away. So those reports that Astrid was just going over with you, those are all included in the teacher portal. So it helps teacher with their lesson planning. It helps planning PDs and increasing student outcomes. And we have a whole separate training on teacher portal where if you wanted to, we could do that training for you, Marcia. If that's something that people would want to do, we could do that as a larger group.
Okay, we have a question in the chat. Where I'm at, we mainly work with students on English language literacy. So would my students only take that portion of the CASAS assessment and not the other parts such as math? Yes, we have 2 separate sort of testing categories. So our test series for English language learners is reading steps and listening steps. So that would be appropriate for your learners. If you work with ABE, ASE students, who are, native English speakers and are looking for a high school credential and that kind of a pathway, then our goals and goals 2 series would be appropriate. But the steps is appropriate for English language learners, and that's largely what we're profiling. All those same reports and many, many, many more are available for both series, whichever series you choose to use with your students, and are also all available in Teacher Portal. Anne says, so I can group student data by class and teacher. Yeah, your students would be entered into TOPS Pro by your data person and entered into a class. And you can run class reports, and you could kind of see, for instance, all the students in your class who took a level C steps reading, for example. So if you're teaching like an intermediate ESL class, you can run class reports, as Laura was mentioning, based on test series level. Okay. So e-tests, we have a whole process to get you started with CASAS e-tests. We have a going live checklist. These are live links. They'll go to, the documentation for that. I think, was it Gabriella who mentioned, or I think Gabriella mentioned, we have a wonderful tech support team who are standing ready to help you get started. We have a go live team which helps set up your program and gets your CASAS e-test and TOPS Pro account set up initially, helps you with kind of getting test series loaded in and all of that. And we do have a wonderful training site that has required training to take and training rules before you set up your e-test account. But that training also is complimentary and on demand, and you can access it anytime 24/7, and go back to it for reference. I think Gabriella mentioned we have a full complement of reference PDFs and videos and GIFs on our TOPS Pro Enterprise and eTest website to kind of help you through if you get stuck or you can't remember how to do something. And there's always our tech support team. We encourage you to take a look at our CASAS catalog as well. If you're going to order paper assessments, that's all there too, and that's linked. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to encourage folks to really think about trying the e-tests. I know students may have a little bit of digital literacy fear, but as a society, we know that when you go to the grocery store, you may check your own bags, right? So there's some digital literacy skills when you go to the airport. I mean, it's all around us. We are seeing nationally that more and more programs are transitioning to e-tests. It is a great way to help your students build some digital literacy skills.
And on our website, we have an e-test sampler, so you can take a look at exactly what the interface looks like. CASAS e-tests really are as simple as click the blue arrow for the next question. There's nothing, there's no high level digital skills that they need whatsoever.
Yeah. Claire just asked, is there some kind of sandbox? Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
Astra just mentioned. Yeah.
Sure, I can, I'll pop the link in the chat if you want to.
Play.
Yeah, I'll do that before we go. So again, there's our wonderful tech support team.
Yeah, this is kind of what we're known for at CASAS, that people will actually answer the phone and get back to you in an email. That's whenever we have testimonials, it's almost always about our tech support team or our training team. So just want you to know that somebody will be there to help you if you get stuck.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So here is our training site. This is kind of a snapshot of it. It's simplified grouped in terms of roles, staff agency roles at your site. So anyone who administers the test would be a proctor, and they would need to take this proctor certification. We have exploring CASAS, kind of, what CASAS is all about, how the system works. coordinator certification. Agency needs to have a coordinator who kind of oversees the testing and putting in the new testing series and kind of works as an intermediary between tech support and, helps proctors. Yeah, and then, there's a set of trainings for remote testing if that's something that your agency might be interested in. And that's a wonderful flexibility that CASAS e-test offers. They can be delivered remotely. It's free, it's available on demand, and it's multimedia. We are in the process of redoing many of our training modules, and they're a lot of fun. They're interactive, they're multimedia, and we do encourage you to take a look. So, Laura.
Yeah. So I don't know if any of you have ever been to the CASAS Summer Institute. It's a conference that we've been putting on for the past 45 years. A little conference. We have about 1,200 people who come every year. And sometimes people think like, what are we going to do? We're just going to talk about CASAS assessments. No, that's not really what we do there. It's a regular conference with regular strands, but what does make it unique is that it really is the only place you can get that hands-on lab training. So that's why a lot of programs will send somebody to the CASAS Summer Institute, because they know that once they're there for a week and they get all that hands-on training, they'll have fewer questions throughout the year. So they'll have that strong foundation. So it's coming up in June. We're very excited. We have a little bit of a yacht rock theme going on this year. So just want to let you know about the CASAS Summer Institute. And I think that's all we have for you. You guys have been great about asking questions as we go along, but if you have any questions, Astrid and I are happy to answer or clarify.
Can you touch base a little bit about costs? And I'll insert here your to our members, your regional consultants can probably assist you with purchasing some of this, maybe all of it. And I do encourage you to reach out to your regional consultant about this. But talk about, is there a cost to set it up and then a cost per test, or how does it work?
There is a cost per test unit. There is no setup cost. It's broken up by how many units you purchase. So obviously the more units you purchase, the lower the cost is. But if you're broken up regionally, you potentially could work as a region, right, to do a bulk purchase. As we were preparing this, Astrid and I realized we don't have a statewide pricing for Wisconsin. So that is something we would want to reach out to your state leaders to see if we could set something up, because that is the least expensive cost.
Okay.
So after this, we're going to be reaching out to them to see if we could set something up. So everybody, yeah.
And those leaders would be like the tech college who buys lots of assessments.
Well, at your state offices, who oversees your adult ed program, we could just let them know, do you guys want a statewide price with CASAS? And we could let them know what other statewide pricing agreements are. They don't have to do anything. It's just, we just say, and then moving forward, we let everybody in Wisconsin benefit from this low cost.
Okay, so in our case, it would be DPI. They wouldn't have to buy them. You
No,
would just work. Oh, I really like the sound of that. Because we do, for those of the folks on the call who are using TABE, some of you know we have a statewide Wisconsin literacy TABE bucket of TABE Class E and TABE tests that we keep filled up as much as we can, and people are able to log in and use those. And so if that's a way that would make it work for you guys, for CASAS, we can certainly talk about how that would look for us here in Wisconsin.
yeah, that would be great, Marcia, if you could do a little virtual, a warm handshake for us to who we would need to talk to. That would be great.
Oh, definitely we'll do that. Okay.
And it's important too to note that those web test units, however many you purchase, never expire. So for instance, if you purchase, 1,000 and you only use, 700, the remaining 300 just roll over forever, and they're not test specific. So if you have some programs that are, want to use the ABE ASE test series, or a test here and there, and other people want to use ESL, or you want to add in the writing, it's just the same WTU.
Other questions for those of you who've been on the call and kind of tracking this, and maybe you have some questions and how this compares to TABE. Those of us who are familiar with it will do our best. I saw Anne, go ahead. Oh, you need to unmute. There you go.
I'm so sorry. I'm usually never muted. It's
Oh,
very
I
hard to
do.
mute me. In 2024, we tested 145 students. Because of our testing frequency and our semester makeup and the mobility of our students, mobility in and out of town, in and out of class, in and out of different jobs, we succeeded in testing 2 times 54 students. So I'm painting a picture of this, and then I'm trying to understand the data. The range of tests, of test results, was -20 to +21 over 5 different levels of English. 3 levels, 5 classes. The range was -20 to +21, and the average of all the scores was 4.96, so 5 points basically. I was very happy with a 5-point positive increase. So there was a whole handful of negatives and a whole handful of positives, but we leaned on the +5. So I feel like I need to problem solve on a number of different levels here with those scores. And it may be too much. There may be too many questions in my profile that I just painted. And so number one, I'd like to talk to you about that later on, if possible. But number two, what's your initial reaction to seeing numbers like that for us problem solving?
Well, I think that's what those reports are meant to assist you with, right? Like to help you kind of chunk out what those issues are so you can target the instruction. I mean, if we went to the DMV as an adult and we didn't pass that DMV test, we'd go home and we'd say, I can't remember the stuff about where to park. So you would go and you'd remediate specifically for that, right? You wouldn't be, well, let me start at the beginning of the book and I'm going to go through the whole thing, right? You would just say, I need to know this. It's the same thing for your adult learners, right? They have specific skills and needs. So that's what we want to provide them with, because they don't have time to waste, right? So that's kind of what I would look at I would lay out all those reports and kind of see what can you chunk, and you put them into small groups, like you would use your different strategies, right, for targeting that instruction.
Right. So I can sort the data in TOPS Pro. I can sort the data by teacher and by class level. And I could sort basically I'd like to, there's so many different, I have not used CASAS in this way ever to assess teacher direction, because we've only been using it a few years, and so we've only tested like a few times. But obviously some of the students with the lowest scores are in all different classes. So we would go learner specific and class specific in understanding our challenges.
Right. Well, and also Astrid mentioned one of our modules, I think, is it 4A or 4B, Astrid? It's really all about helping teachers use the reports to target instruction. So
Yeah.
that's probably where you'd want to start. And well, just so you know, we're in the process of updating that module. Astrid is in charge of that. So you would, if you took it now, you get to see the before and after of that module.
Yes, yes, very good. And so then our low test frequency for, I mean, we have 100 people that didn't get tested twice in 2024 would say to me, I should be testing every semester.
I think most agencies do a pre-post by term. If it's a trimester, they do the pre at the beginning and the post at the end of the trimester, then again a pre, then a post. It's like a farming schedule, right?
Yes.
Like you have to determine what that best farming schedule is for you. Astrid, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that our tests are developed and normed on 70 to 100 hours of instruction in between pre and post.
Excellent.
A minimum of 40. So you want to be sure that you're giving them that chance and post testing them after enough seat time. The other thing too is if your text series and or your student or your teachers are not aligning their lessons with the English language proficiency standards, it's kind of apples and oranges.
Yeah.
So the assessment series is aligned to the English language proficiency standards, and instruction will be most beneficial if it also is aligned with those English language proficiency standards. So that's real key, is
Yeah.
getting these reports into the hands of teachers so they know, as Laura mentioned, their students' time is so valuable, as well as the teachers, and we need to kind of just wring every bit of value out of every minute that we have them. And so those reports really help teachers to hone in on to triage, what's the most, where can they get the most bang for the buck teaching inference, because that was the lowest. So time is short, they don't always come, so triage and decide, what, maybe have teachers get together, look at their assessments, their students as a class, get together. If you have, 2, 3 teachers that teach the intermediate class, different sections, chances are if there's a gap in one class, that holds true for the others. So have those teachers have some time together to collaborate and go, okay, this semester we're going to focus on inference, for example. And then post test and see if they make that gain, see how that pays off.
Mm-hmm. I think, well, I don't want to speak for anybody else on the call, but a number of our literacy councils started out as a group of volunteers tutoring. And so this notion of state level English language literacy standards guiding our classwork is it's very familiar to some of our teachers and directors, but others of us, it's like, holy cow. This is, I mean, Marcia, this is for me to you in Wisconsin. I would so love all of our teachers to really get a grip on this.
Yeah.
You're not alone. You're not alone. And this is nationally a struggle, those college and career readiness standards and ELP standards. So, but the reports do help, instead of thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm a teacher, I got to figure out all of these standards. Well, that's not true. The report is going to help you say, you know what, I'm going to start with these 2 standards, and then
Right.
yeah.
Right. And this is our first year actually now for really looking at the fact that students are tracking themselves. Some of them want to go to university or they want to go to college and they're on that path. Others are they just want to get a better job. And so we're working out how to manage both of those and some just want to be able to do their kids' homework with them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would invite, because I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time, invite any additional questions. But for those of you who would really like to consider CASAS as your new assessment, to please include that in the chat. Because maybe what we'll do is do CASAS 201 next, for those of you who really think this is a better way for you to, or maybe a new way to assess your students. But it would be really nice to know those of you who are on the call who are really now seriously considering it, and then we can figure out the best way to help you make that final decision. So, but just know, I will be reaching out to our contact at the Department of Public Instruction, who happens to be the director there, and connecting her with Astrid and Laura so that they can get us the best price. And from everything I've seen, these assessments are less expensive than TABE. And is there a minimum buy of these assessments?
I think it's 100, right?
100 as opposed, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, and again, we would definitely entertain the idea of Wisconsin Literacy being the repository of assessments that we would purchase that you all could access. So we just kind of need to know how many of you are interested. So again, thank you. Thank you so much, Laura and Astrid. This has been absolutely fascinating and very helpful, I hope, to everybody who was on the call today. So I thank you very much. And I thank all of you who joined us today, because I hope you're walking away with just a whole new way of thinking about things.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Marcia.
You bet. Thank
Very
you.
welcome.
Perfect.
If you have any questions, we didn't, please info@casas.org. That's the inbox that comes directly to me and a couple of my colleagues. And so we're happy to answer any and all questions. Implementations go live, and then our orders department. But you can always start with info if you'd like, and we'd make sure you get it to the right place.
And also, we didn't mention Astrid is assigned to support Wisconsin. So that's who you would be working with. Yeah.
Yeah. And hoping Astrid will be at our statewide conference in August.
Mhm.
And maybe, yeah, and then we'll get to talk to her much more, or maybe even presenting. So,
It was my pleasure. Yeah.
okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
right.
Again, thank you. Thank you all. I will get the PowerPoint, send it out to you. Watch for an email in the next day or so. I'm going to ask you to do that little survey again where we learn about other things you want to hear about in our professional development. And I'll include anything else in there that I can get from Astrid and or Laura, maybe some of the brochures and general information about it. So watch for it. It's coming.